The word Shema is a first word of perhaps the most well-known Jewish prayer. Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. It's one of the first prayers we teach to a child. It's considered to be the right prayer to end our lives with. Some of our greatest sages died with a Shema on their lips. Shema is a prayer that we post on our doorpost with a mezuzah. It's also found in the tefillin, in the phylacteries. But what does Shema actually mean? Well, the word Shema means to listen or to hear. Shema means to be able to hear things with your ears. But when you look through the Torah, specifically the book of Dvarim, you find that this phrase, Shema Yisrael, appears time after time. In fact, Chief Rabbi Sachs notes that Shema Yisrael as a phrase appears over 90 times in the book of Dvarim. Why does this phrase appear so often, far more than that simple prayer that we recite in the morning and in the evening? According to Rabbi Sachs, Shema Yisrael is really a philosophy of Judaism. It's a philosophy about what we choose to listen to, and also how we choose to interact with the world. Judaism arose in a world of idolatry, where people connected with what they saw. They saw a stone or a tree, and they decided to worship that stone and tree. They decided to have faith in what they could see. Judaism takes a different view. Abraham heard the word of God. Moses spoke with God, and he heard God speak to him. Our great prophets and prophetesses heard God's words, and in so doing, it inspired them, and they inspired others. There's a radically different approach to faith when you judge faith by what you see than what you hear. If faith is about what you see, then you're going to start worshipping idols. But if your faith is about what you hear, then you look beyond the physical. You try and capture the words being uttered from heaven. Shema Yisrael, those words that we say in Jewish prayer, those words that are repeated in Sefer Dvarim, are a reminder that we have an oral approach to faith, not a visual approach to faith. In fact, Rabbi Sachs explains, in the English language, we emphasize a visual approach to wisdom. He says, in English, when you're trying to convey an idea or communicate the idea that you've understood something, you may use the words, I see. We use terms like insight and foresight. All are rooted on the notion of seeing. But in Judaism, especially in the Talmud, we have an altogether different philosophical language. The Talmud talks about tashma, come and hear. Mashma, it's from what we hear that we learn. Compared to the English language, which is rooted in sight, the Jewish language is rooted on what we hear, which emphasizes our belief in something beyond what we can see. So what is our task in life? It's not just to affirm our faith in God, who is not visual, but who can be heard. But it's to hear God in all that we do. In fact, my most favorite quote of Rabbi Sachs goes as follows. God is a music in all that lives, but there are times when all we can hear is noise. The true religious challenge is to ignore the noise and focus on the music. It's to hear God amongst all the other things that we hear. It's to try and hear God in the kol damama daka, in that still, soft voice, who's often whispering to each and every one of us, whispering to us about what our mission should be. Too often we think God is going to be seen in the big events in front of us. But really, God is talking to us And our task is to heed the call of Shema Israel. Hear Israel. Listen to that God. Hear the word of God through that noise. And in so doing, realize your mission on earth.